Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It is I, Tyler Ellison, channel for RYOKAH of the Sasani. I'm here with my friend Starshine of the Sasani universe, whom was just in Arizona seeing Bashar, channeled by Daryl Anka. And it's so good to be connecting with her once more. Starshine, how are you? And welcome back from the amazing adventure and immersion.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Tyler. Hi, everyone. It was an absolute blast. I don't want to make this sound cliche, but it was definitely out of this world. So good to see everyone. So many of your friends were there as well. It was just absolutely crazy. I can tell you how many Ryoka diehard fans came up to me. So it was just a beautiful time for sure.
Wow. I am really blown away when you told me about how many people from the Ryoka community you saw at the event. And they went out of their way to actually come to you and be like, "You're Star. How cool to actually meet in person." And I think that's so incredible. So for everyone that's here, that's listening to this, that's watching this, remember, we are real people. We don't just exist in your phone, in your computer. We are out and about in the world, and you can meet with us. That's why we go to these events, because this is where the soul family connection can really come to life. And in the background, when all that mingling's happening, we're sharing so many life codes. Think of all the spiritual experiences that everyone in that event had to have gone through to be at that event. So all of that's being unconsciously communicated when we're in those spaces. So it's a really powerful time. I'm super glad you were out there, and I hope everyone that's listening that made it out to Sedona had an awesome time. I didn't go. I had a lot of sessions here and some projects to tend to, but exciting news and update. I will be channeling at the channel panel this November, and Bashar, channeled by Daryl Anka, will also be there. We're going to have a whole bunch of speakers that Rob Gauthier has organized. And I encourage you guys, if you're on the East Coast, come on down. I'm in Delaware, and for me, West Virginia is probably about like a 4 hour road trip, right? It's very doable. And there's not a lot of spiritual events that I see on the East Coast. So, what makes this channel panel really unique is we're going to be gathering these world-class channelers together in the vortex points proximal to the mountains associated with West Virginia. So this is going to be a huge update of energy for the East Coast of the United States. So if you want to be a part of that, which I think of as a landmark moment, we encourage you to come because it's going to be a lot of fun. Last year in Sedona was an absolute blast. And I got to interact with Bashar a little bit there. I didn't get to meet Daryl personally, but I got to talk to Bashar, which was quite exciting, which was also my first time doing it. And it's quite an experience. If you haven't done it before, I do recommend it. It can be very powerful. Star was mentioning it had a very big resonant effect for her. And when you have a bunch of channelers in one space, it is different than a usual expo where you have a lot of different speakers. This is like a total vortex, and all of the channelings tend to synchronistically blend together. So you get these macro transmissions that are built by all the entities, and it's a very special update, and it's a very special time. So I want to appreciate everybody here. Thank you for your support and helping me evolve my channeling to this level where I can be doing these events like the channel panel. It's very exciting, and it's my joy to share that with you guys and invite you to come out and see us. If you are excited to tune in to some of the online events that we have this month, this Sunday, we are going to be doing our magical ritual involving the Wheel of Fortune tarot card, all about increasing fame, success, reputation, and phasing out the old energies that are outdated from those previous cycles of transformation that we have gone through. Sometimes there's things from the past that still sort of remain unconsciously within our experience, despite the evolution. And with these magical rituals, we can turn that wheel. And as we shift those polarities, that which no longer serves is diminished, and that which represents our joy, our path of purpose, our abundance, that is elevated. So we're going to be using the powers of angels, the powers of the tarot, and more. So if you're interested in meditation, if you're passionate about using magical forces to change your life, this is a very immersive training, and you can actually repeat the training after the ritual that we do, you can replay that video. And it's actually a video that you can replay at power dates throughout the year. So you can save that video and use it once more at the correct time. So that's going to be this Sunday at 1 p.m. And we are going to be doing a special Patreon channeling. And this is all about the reptilians, the Nagas, the inner earth serpentine beings, and mystery schools that have led to the development of different spiritual traditions and even civilizations here on the planet. So this is going to be a more immersive dive for people that want to go deeper into that connection. And we're focusing on this because in the northern hemisphere we're starting to shift into the fall season, starting to shift into the winter season. So this is when the polarities go from light to slightly more dark. So we're using the reptilian energy to actually access more of the shadow ahead of time so we can begin to process some of those energies. So as we go into the deeper darkness, which is winter, it's like we've cleaned the house and everything's very pleasant and allows for us to feel very comfortable in the inner sanctum of our being. If our inner sanctum has, reptilian fears, brainstem fears and stuff, it's hard to relax into the self. So we're going to be avidly looking at that and using some of the Kundalini techniques and practices to transform those energies. So if those resonate with you, we encourage you, come and join us. These transmissions are special and they are different than the usual transmissions that we do. The information here is going to be very focused on the nature of the occult and how to work with those properties. So now that we've shared those two events, we've gotten the announcements out of the way, we are all set to begin some trance channeling. As you guys know, these Q&A sessions are where you can ask RYOKAH a question. You can type your questions into the chat, and Starshine will be observing that question list, picking the questions that are the most resonant, that are the most exciting. You can ask pretty much what you want with a few things. Online on YouTube, we don't take medical questions. And anything that's going to get us strikes, we will not take those questions. So please be just aware of that when you phrase your questions. What's going to allow for this channel to remain on the internet, right? Have that as a focus. That's important. And I appreciate the attention you give to your questions, everyone, because I know with writing, with typing, there's not as much body language, there's not as much energy. So the fact that you guys are able to type these really advanced questions so clearly, it helps us be able to know what you're looking at, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and then RYOKAH can mirror that and amplify it. So thank you for these questions because they are what summoned forth the new answers. And I will say that again, there's a lot of new answers, new information coming through. We've been doing, and I haven't told people this is happening in the background, but we're doing a Japanese open contact ascension manual. And it's mostly channeled. It's part channeling, part interview with myself. And RYOKAH is being channeled for these Japanese authors and spiritual practitioners. And they're asking them all types of things, especially about Japan and human history. And there's stuff coming through that I've never really heard talked about before. It's pretty much brand new material that links a lot of theories together. So this is a really powerful time. What Bashar had said a while ago about us receiving our true history as we get closer to contact, it's my experience that that's happening right now in real time. And all of you and your questions are responsible for that. So I appreciate it, my friends. Thanks for making this new earth real. And I'm going to dive into the trance. I will see you on the other side of the transmission. Boy, we thank each and every single one of you for joining us in this co-creative interaction that we summoned forth this here This now, this opening monologue is all about opening up the inner vision. And we are specifically sharing all of this with you because of some of the details the channel mentioned earlier. You're beginning to move into a time within your wheel of the year where the light is beginning to lessen in terms of your solar light. And this will be a time where the occult light begins to vibrate and amplify with the greater power, alignment, and obviousness. So, whenever you move into those seasons or cycles where there's less sunlight, it means that the outer darkness that is a side effect of this is beginning to summon forth within you a mirror response that is complementary and balancing in nature, which translates as a greater awareness of your inner space, which looks like darkness when your eyes are closed, and a deepening of the awareness of the geometries of light and the fractal patterns of light that flow forth through your inner world. So, what I'd like for you all to do is right now, remember what it's like when your eyes are closed. You can even physically close your eyes if you desire to. And from here, sense that the darkness that you see is just a veil. It is just a covering. You can even think of it as a garment that the mysterious inner being adorns themselves with. Just as your eyelids are sort of a covering for the eyes and it creates the experience of darkness, the darkness itself is a garment, a covering, a form of concealment for an inner world of light. We mentioned in a previous transmission that extraterrestrial contact is greatly associated with what you would call the inner space, the realms of inner darkness, and the Akashic field. In your realm of light, physical photonic light that you experience as daytime, things express in their particle form instead of their wave form. So things are a little bit more fixed, or at least they appear to be. But when your eyes are closed, when you are in the inner space, all of those different forms begin to sort of dissolve into one. And when you're in deep meditation and you begin to feel like a drop in the ocean, that is you resonating with the underlying energy of all beings as they express in that wave form. So, the first level to developing your inner sight is developing your inner awareness. As you bring your mind into the body through body scanning, the body begins to relax, and you will find that the body begins to synchronize with deep diaphragmatic breathing. From here, the consciousness through the breath will begin to resonate with the physical body. As that resonance stabilizes, it will begin to expand into the aura. That is the energy transmission from the consciousness that you are into the projection of your physical reality. And once your consciousness begins to extend past the body into the aura, this is when your consciousness begins to summon forth into your space macrocosmic or collective energies. This is when you go past the little self into the bigger self, the super self. And from here, you will begin to feel the energies. Remember, if you feel emotions, you're feeling energies. So you all have the ability to feel different qualities of sensations. Think of energies as the building blocks to emotions, but energies are also the building blocks to thought. Energies are also the building blocks to action. So remember, you all experience energy, or at least the side effects of what you call energy, through your emotions, through your thoughts, through your actions. So as you synchronize your breathing with your body, with your aura, guided by the power of your inner consciousness, the ability to feel energy will increase. You will start to feel as if you are a sphere that is expanding with each breath, getting larger and larger. And with each exhale, it's as if that sphere becomes reinforced. Your aura expands and densifies with each inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. This level of felt fluency, kinesthetic fluency with the energy world, will summon forth that next level of perception, usually sound or sight. And what I mean is, when you expand past the body and synchronize with the macrocosm, the underlying energies of the universe will then be drawn to you. This is usually translated as a high-pitched ringing in the sonic form, almost like a mosquito, or almost like a ringing in the ears, or almost like a hissing of a cicada, or something like this. This is the underlying frequency as it expresses in an audible, psychic human form. In terms of sight, many beings will begin to see different colors. They will begin to see that the colors change, eventually evolving all the way into what you describe as ultraviolet. From here, the ultraviolet light will evolve into geometries, and the geometries will begin to reveal beings. So, this awakening of the inner eye will come from paying attention to your inner world with the same intensity and dedication of focus that you have been using to pay attention to your outer world. It is a matter of reversing those polarities of attention, and eventually you will find inner and outer world become balanced. It is as if there's no difference. You become your collective whilst remaining yourself. And as you make positive shifts within the self, it's mirrored within the collective near instantaneously through creating that resonant link between the macro and microcosm. We thank you for receiving this opening transmission, and we make ourselves now available to you for your questions. You may proceed.
Hello, friend. Ha'atu, how are you?
Ha'atu, we are delighted to exist, and it is so exciting for us to co-create with you in this way and with these wonderful human friends and family members that have joined us on this day. How is your living, lucid experience of physical reality unfolding for you?
Well, I think I'm adopting your state of being, which is just happy to exist. So all is perfect.
We are delighted to hear this, and you will find that this very powerful high state of enjoyment is the first step in the staircase of higher ascension.
Great. So let's begin with our first question for you. So, what will first open contact be like for people that are in prison?
So, when open contact begins to solidify in a physical way, where you're commonly seeing craft, the craft aren't just playing tag with you all, but they're sort of hovering over locations, remaining stationary. Beings are projecting from them, contacting different people. By the time you're at this level, this is when what we have described as the massive walk-in phenomenon will take place. So it's already sort of happening now, and many of you are experiencing it in different ways. As we have stated before, the walk-in phenomena is not necessarily a soul replacing a currently incarnated soul and occupying its body and life. No, no, no. It is more so that the old mask that a person's been using to navigate their life, in the face of the luminosity produced by the collective ascension, no longer makes sense for the person to use, and it is almost instantaneously dissolved, and simultaneously a new ego, a new mask, a divine mask is used to replace the old one. So the open contact, the extraterrestrial presence, and the higher divinities that you are all calling upon are going to be producing pulses of light that wash your entire planet. It's so much light that it will create instantaneous realization and understanding in many people about the nature of themselves, the nature of their life, the nature of reality. That gnosis, that clarity will be so powerful, the old masks aren't going to make too much sense for them to wear anymore. And that intuition and logic behind the energy is so refined that the human psychology translates it almost instantaneously. So it's a very quick shift. So Even those that you describe as your hardened criminals, there is an ability here for them to also go through this type of transformational process. And this will likely set the stage for a type of shift within the human culture as to how punishments are issued and how those who break laws or rules are treated. So, the reason there will likely be a change here is because people's behavior, people's demeanor, people's character is going to begin to shift from negative to positive. So, all of the densified negativity that you have all seen on television, in your media, and some of you physically in areas of conflict, all of this energy, this is going to flip into its opposite. I will say that again. Think of all of the negative energy you have experienced collectively, within the society, personally. All of that energy is going to flip into positivity. And this is why we encourage all of you now, organize your reality, organize your energy field, organize your life in a way that represents how you would like to experience life on the other side of that shift. But that's going to create a big change, the collective walk-in experience. It's going to create a shift in people's energy. People are going to be less inclined to perform acts of terror, acts of violence, acts of theft, acts of harm, acts of violation. All of this is going to be diminished in terms of impulse. All of that is going to be decreased. All beings have certain impulses that are related to the realms of shadow. It is the quality of the mask that determines how those energies are channeled and expressed. So, a very negative mask will take those impulses and channel them in a very negative way. But a mask of wisdom can take any energy and can use it in service of light and love and cooperation, collaboration, harmony. All of that can be done. Even with the most volatile of energies, that result can be achieved if the energy is channeled in a way that's in service to such things. That's the power of alchemy, turning lead into gold.
All right, thank you.
You're so welcome.
Up next, can you speak on why the dinosaurs were here and why were they wiped out?
So the dinosaurs largely represented large form reptilian beings that in ancient times were incredibly telepathic and acted as temporary reptilian overseers of different regions of the planet. In some instances, the saurian beings and what you described as humanity, when humanity's telepathic power was still very alive, formed friendships and alliances. Some dinosaurs, some saurian beings were predatory, where others had the ability for cooperation, collaboration. So, the dinosaurs largely were a Anunnaki reptilian creation, meant to oversee certain areas. And these beings, because of their large size, physical density, and psychic power, were able to broadcast very powerful psychic physical frequencies of programming, thus shifting and organizing how the very surface level reality of Earth manifests itself. We have described before, Earth is a collective projection. You're all projecting this version of Earth. Well, think of how large and powerful some of the dinosaurs are. They're also projecting a version of Earth. So, a planet of dinosaurs creates a type of reptilian saurian grid where the codes that they choose become the overarching energies that encompass that reality matrix. So, your extinction event that reduced the dinosaurs ultimately diminished that grid. This caused many reptilian species to go beneath the earth and saurian species to go beneath the earth. Some reptilian species left the planet and brought some of the saurian creations with them. So the dinosaurs, as you call them, have played many roles. They were originally created to manifest a planetary grid in service to reptilians, Anunnaki. However, the dinosaurs, many of them being highly intelligent, formed relationships with many different species, and some of them played different types of roles with those species that were friendly, cooperative, and harmonious. So remember, just as all people are different and have different characters, different values, different beliefs, these different beings are like that. So remember, beings evolve and change. And as you know, the dinosaurs evolve into birds, the reptilians evolve into the avians. So those saurian species that collaborated with humanity, worked with humanity, that's the lineage, the factions of the saurians that evolve into the avians. They go to a higher level through acts of service.
All right, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. This is also one of the reasons why children are very fond of dinosaurs. They remember those times where humans and dinosaurs had friendships and relationships. They were companions. This is where you get that idea of humans possessing a dragon that they are born with. It's a very common spiritual idea in your New Age community. It goes back to those days when you physically had relationships with some of these beings.
All right, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
So up next, what will happen to immediate family members when the Earth split is complete? Will we still be able to interact if they are in a different vibration?
So remember that vibrational difference is all right. It's a matter of how different. If someone's vibration, their frequency is very, very different from yours, it's likely you may not interact with them too much because your frequency is going to determine what you're drawing into your vortex, what you're drawing into your perception of manifested reality. So if the frequencies you're operating at are incredibly different, you're going to be in different realities. That might look like you living in the same area, just not seeing each other. But quantumly, it's like you're literally in different universes, different realities. In terms of maintaining those relationships and honoring them as the shifting continues, you don't have to match their energy 100% perfectly. They don't have to match your energy 100% perfectly. Remember, you're operating at two different levels of frequency, and this is not just you and family members or perhaps strangers, but this is also you and your close friends. This is you and those you're in deep relationships with. You're all vibrating at slightly different frequencies. And you come together, and your difference in vibration creates a new reality that is shared, that's empowered by the consciousness of both people and the collective realities that they represent. So it's all right if someone's energy is a little different than yours. Your energy, of course, will be a little different than theirs. And those differences help you create something new. So it's just a matter of how different. Different isn't bad. Different just mean there's a different focus that doesn't necessarily involve your energy. That's all. So if someone's differences perhaps are differences that express in harmful ways or hurtful ways, this is a person to love like a cactus, you see. Love them with your eyes. You don't have to get super close, but you can still act as an agent of love. Remember, all of these beings who act out in negative ways, they're trying to fulfill needs. That is the only reason they act out. They're trying to get the outer reality to give them something. And they think by acting out, they're going to get it. So, as a spiritual scientist, observe those whom are different from you. What are their needs? What can you offer in the situation that is a gift of service, love, and authenticity that assists the other person, sometimes without them even know they have been assisted? You can create those kinds of shifts. And in that way, you can bring others up to meet you in these higher energy states. And you will find if they have a genuine interest in you, if they have a genuine desire to connect with you, they'll meet you there because you're important to them and they value the relationship. So even those whom are struggling with negativity, and that's most humans, they are beings that you can assist. All it takes It's the right kind of attention, the right kind of energy, and the desire to reveal the goodness that exists within them. So you have a lot of influence here in terms of the quality of your experience and how many of these relationships will unfold. So remember, in terms of relationship divides, usually someone has not been validated, someone has not been honored, perhaps someone has not been listened to, perhaps someone does not know how to communicate properly. These types of things create divisions that higher skills and higher awareness and higher love can easily mend and easily repair. So you are a steward of the earth, and a part of that is your earthly relationships.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Up next is a personal question for you. How many children do you have, if any?
7.
Okay, that takes care of that.
More information will come later as we get closer to contact.
All right, great.
But they are here and they learn from all of you.
You mean they attend the transmissions as
They
well?
attend the transmissions, yes. They can be a little shy, which is why they're not usually announced, but they silently observe, they learn in the background, and after these interactions, in terms of your experience of time, we break down on a quantum level all of the intricate details of the why things happen the way they happen, what certain things may represent, what certain things may lead to, so on and so forth. So they get to learn about all of you, their ancestors, and they get to learn about the contact process. Some of them will be training to be first contact specialists. So this is a part of their, you could say, field trip based learning.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Up next, can you speak on the origin of Black people and where they originate from?
So, what you describe as the melanated form, this is a more original human form. So, the lighter skin pigmentation, this developed later as a result of migrations to areas that had less sunlight, colder environments, and were also the result of exposure to certain stellar and planetary energies that created a shift in how the DNA expresses itself. So when you're thinking of ancient humanity, think of dark skin pigmentation. Remember, humanity sort of begins, if you will, in your Africa, in your Middle East, and from there expands outwardly in terms of the Anunnaki versions of humanity. We remind you there are earlier versions of humanity that existed during your times of Pangea. And this is when humanity expressed as a species of light, teleporting themselves to Earth, to Pangea, acting as luminous organizers of the reality. And over time, through interfacing with the Earth, they began to densify. These were the first people. So, Anunnaki beings, they are in a certain way parents to many versions of humanity, but it is important to remember that humanity transcends what you describe as the Anunnaki story in the sense of being just an Anunnaki creation. That's not 100% accurate. It's not 100% true. What you are as a people, what you are as a being, predates the Anunnaki modifications. They technically come later and were performed because of how the densifications on Earth had taken place. So the original modifications were designed to balance the densified humanity and over time, certain factions of the Anunnaki use that relationship as a way to focus upon more service to self agendas. And that's where you start getting into different Anunnaki creational stories and different versions of humanity. What you describe as your current human form is a novel form that is the result of the original light blueprints of your first people being made primary within the genetic template once more. And that's why you are not Neanderthal or Denisovans. This is why you're Homo sapiens. It is a returning, if you will, to that original template before many of the modifications and before the unconscious factors that were a side effect of the initial densifications. But in those days, plenty of sunlight. Humans were living outdoors before the expansion. So most people were very melanated. In terms of the origin of Black people, it is important to remember that there are also human forms that exist on many worlds. And some of the beings of the cosmos whom resonate with your concept that you describe as Black people and that type of expression and body appearance, there are many whom exist within the Orion civilization, and there are some whom migrated to the Sirius system. So the Orion system is where many beings of light first began to take on bodies of material density, which is why the original Orion stories are very turbulent. It was as if humanity at that time was incarnating into a totally new paradigm, a paradigm of density, and that took some getting used to. It's different than living in a realm of light. It's different than living as a stellar being. There's more limitation, and there are biological impulses. That's a very different kind of thing. Most beings of light are not used to that. So, some of these original locations for what you describe as Black people cosmically, you have Orion, as well as Sirius, and of course there are some whom have migrated to Taurus and the Pleiades. Ultimately, remember that there are many versions of humanity that possess skin colors or complexions that you don't actually have on Earth. And many of these original versions were created in the system that you describe as Lyra or Lyra, relevant to the previous pole star described as Vega. So this is where many of the different phenotypic skin color expressions were manifested. But on that level, they weren't fully densified. So think of human forms, each one glowing a different color, like the rainbow, but a rainbow that transcends your limited 7 colors. So this is an expression of human consciousness as it was manifested into a type of energy form within the system of Lyra.
All right, thank you so much.
Of course, you are so welcome.
So let's go to our last question of the day. And this is a pretty interesting one. So, since the Greys were able to develop time travel, would it not be possible for them to, let's say, go into the future, their future, get solutions, and then travel back in time before they annihilated their environment?
There is a powerful curiosity behind this question. We're very pleased it has been asked. And this is going to get into things like timeline mechanics, so buckle up. We'll be concise as well. It's the last question. So, the Greys have accessed both their future and their past to create the hybridization program and to create a path of salvation and, in a sense, redemption for their people. So, the Greys were informed of the future through the Mantis collectives. They approached the Grey Federation, whom was broadcasting signals for assistance into the multidimensional reality Their computing technologies had reached a point where, through mathematics, sacred geometry, and raw power, they were able to communicate with a variety of different levels of reality, and they were able to translate the information received in those communications into their language. So, through those broadcasted signals, the Mantis Collective reached out to them and they told them of the prophecy that is the hybridization program. They told them of that future and they let them know that that path of blending, coevolution, and ultimately light, love, and enlightenment was available to them. And they showed them what would be needed in order for that program to come into existence. And that is when they began traveling into what you would describe as the past, to access your Earth, representing an earlier version of humanity, an earlier version of their people. So the Mantis beings informed them of the hybridization program. They told them about that future trajectory, and that's what encouraged them, motivated them to initiate the program, traveling into the past. Remember, the past is very solid in terms of your psychological associations with it. And physically, your past is beneath you. It's the civilizations that have come and gone. You bury your dead in the earth. The past is literally beneath you, and it's in a reality of density. So it's a little bit more fixed in terms of psychological perceptions and energy perceptions. Future, on the other hand, it's like the clouds. It can be a little bit more wiggly, a little bit more wavy. It's not as fixed. It's more fluid. It's in flux. The Greys needed physical solutions, for they were dying out. So the past allowed for them to access a version of the DNA more akin to their original template that also possessed energies of density that could resonate physically with the physical energies and genetic templates of the Grey Federation and their people. If they received information and genetics from the future, this would be levels beyond the Greys and where they're at. It might not completely take, it might not completely synchronize. So what happened first? The hybridization program. Energies from the past, genetics from the past were gathered to supplement the Grey beings and to create the hybrid children. Now that the original template has been restored, those higher future-based genetics can now activate and synchronize with the Grey Federation. And this is why we have talked about them evolving. They're regaining some of the properties that they had edited out of them. And they are becoming more human through all of you. And they are assisting you through their ascension and that contrasting role they have played over time to actually become more of yourselves, more human, and to avoid the same types of choices that led them down their path of destruction.
That's very interesting. Thank you so much.
Of course, you are so welcome. We thank you all for these exciting questions that you have shared with us this day. Our species, gratitude and unconditional love to each and every single one of you. Ha'atu.
Ha'atu.
Okay. Everybody, that was such a powerful transmission and a lot of new information. And thank you for making that possible. I love that we get to do this each Friday. I think it's so special. And for those of you that have been coming to each of these Friday meetings, we really appreciate it. Thank you for your support, your energy. Even if you're just tuning in and not asking questions, your energy amplifies these events and makes them really special. And if you're watching the recording of these, it links our present moment with the future. So we appreciate you bringing that energy quantumly to us all here. Star, thanks for this great transmission today. I had a lot of fun creating with you and getting to reconnect.
For sure. I am just still in disbelief of the 7 kids he has. That's pretty cool.
That was a new one for me too. I did not know that. That was brand new.
Definitely. But yeah, it was good to see you as always, and Ryoka, and all of you guys as well. Thanks for coming and all your beautiful questions. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. We'll see you soon, friends. Have a glorious